The lady's now in the lake, so where are we going to go from here? Let's talk about The Lady in the Lake, episode 5. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. That's Friday, which means we get another episode of Lady in the Lake. This is Lady in the Lake episode 5. Every time someone turns up dead in that lake, it does seem to lead to you. Another long title is a quote from the episode itself. It drops on Apple TV Plus on August 9th, 2024, or I guess it emerges since it's from the lake. But is this episode worth your time? Yes, definitely. My hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. It is a great episode. It has some really great music. It has plenty of drama as we see some more investigation into Cleo Johnson's murder and who might have caused her to be in that lake. And it has a shocking ending that makes me can't wait for next week. I absolutely love this episode from start to finish. So definitely think you should check it out. If you haven't seen the other ones, hurry up. There's only 5 episodes in. There's 2 episodes left. Make sure to catch up quickly so you can be up to speed when the last 2 drop, because I bet they're going to be really good. So all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off when I get there. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free. Let you know when I get to those spoilers. So remember, at the end of episode 4, we finally had Cleo in the lake. She was dropped there by Reggie after Stefan had escaped from the asylum. Police were pursuing him. That startled Reggie. Reggie fell. He broke his leg. Couldn't say anything because there were police around. And so that was kind of how episode 4 ended. And so now in episode 5, Cleo is found, although it's a few months later. She'd been missing. Her body is finally found in that fountain. And once her body comes alive, once it seems like maybe she was murdered, Maddie decides that maybe this is the case that she wants to investigate. But is this a little bit too big for her? Is this going to be a little bit too dangerous of an assignment? Well, you have to watch the episode to find out. So things I liked about this episode. The first, I love the music. It has some great music, some great gospel music in a very important scene. I mean, the music in this series has always been good, but there was one scene where there is like gospel music blaring, like, permeating the scene, and it is beautiful and powerful. It really elevates this important scene very early in this episode. Second thing I love the drama. There is a lot of drama in here as Maddie starts to try to investigate into Cleo's murder. She gets a lot of pushback from people. And if you know Maddie, that just causes her to investigate further, to push further. And I think it'll lead to some consequences down the line. I guess we'll see where those go. And the last thing I love the ending. It is a fantastic ending, a really good ending, a very powerful ending that makes me just can't wait for the next episode. I almost want to start now, but I'll wait so that I can do an episode recap next week. So, oh, and the last thing I like the writing. I mean, this has been a well-written series, but this episode, there are some really good conversations between Maddie and some of the characters that really just kind of like let you see the cat and mouse that's happening, let you see like how they are like playing each other and how Maddie's trying to like break it down. It is really, really good writing. It is really fun to watch, and I really enjoyed it. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much. There was just, I guess, maybe one minor thing. The ending, I loved it. It was big and exciting and shocking. It seemed to escalate a little quickly. And I'm okay with it because it does lead to a very kind of like big conclusion, but it seemed like it escalated a little bit too quickly for me. So all that being said, Lady in the Lake episode 5 comes to Apple TV Plus on August 9th, 2024. Like I said, definitely watch it. Definitely catch up on the series if you haven't started it yet, because it is a good series and it's getting much, much better. So I'm going to go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So episode 5 gives us a little bit more backstory on Maddie. It starts in 1946, where Maddie goes on a tour of Hal Durst's factory, who is the father of her boyfriend, Alan Durst. You can tell it's not actually a tour. She said that she is like writing an article for her school newspaper. This seems to be maybe an illicit, this seems to be maybe like a rendezvous. You can tell it is because they hook up on this tour. So it seems like that tension, that kind of attraction that we saw in an earlier episode, I want to say it was like episode 2, between Maddie and Hal has fully bloomed, and they, have a relationship. Now it's fast forward to 1967. That is our current time. Maddie is meeting with her husband Milton at a restaurant. He is serving her divorce papers. They have a kind of contentious talk, but he eventually agrees to pay for her lawyer so that I guess they can continue the proceedings. Maddie said that she needs support, and Milton is begrudgingly going to give some to her. So now we see how Cleo's body was found. There are some people who are going up to the fountain. It looks like they might be repairing something. They're checking the lights, and when they get there, One of them drops a part into the fountain itself, and the person looks down, and there we see Cleo's trademark blue coat obscured in the water, and and that is how they discover Cleo's body. Now, Maddie is at the Star, and it seems like there's a little bit of a commotion. Her friend Bob comes up to her and asks like about the letter about some sort of lights in the fountain. Maddie's like, "Oh yeah, it was one of the letters that came into Miss Helpline. I called the whatever, whoever to like repair it, and I guess that was the tip that caused them to then discover the body. So they want to know like who sent you that letter. They're trying to figure out who was the person that sent it to her. Maddie gives them some fake name named Bill Smith, and but she gets the idea that maybe she's going to investigate this. Maybe she's going to use that letter to try to track down the clues to figure out who this person was and why she was murdered. So Maddie calls Stefan thinking that he was the one that sent her the letter. It was like from Bill Smith, who was like an anonymous name. It actually was Bill Smith. When she sold it to Bob, Bob thought she just made up a name, but I guess that was actually the name. She calls Stefan thinking that maybe he sent the letter, and Stefan says he didn't, and she believes him because he's like, look, all my letters go to go through the Baltimore Corrections Facility. It would definitely show that. It's like, oh, you could have had an accomplice. And he's like, why would I send a letter about a body that you think I might have killed? Like that's ridiculous. And then Stefan says the like title line. He tells her that every time someone turns up dead in that lake, it does seem to lead to you because Maddie was the one that found Tessie. Maddie was the one that called in the tip to find Cleo. And we find out later that Maddie and Cleo have a little bit of a connection too. So it seems like everyone turning up dead at this lake is somehow connected to Maddie. So Maddie then goes on the case. She starts to investigate. She talks to the coroner, who tells her that there were no signs of trauma or strangulation on Cleo. Maddie goes to the Afro, the Baltimore Black newspaper that has been reporting on Cleo's disappearance and now is reported on the murder. Maddie says that she wants to investigate too, and the Afro is like, as you would expect, like, oh, what? Now you want to like jump in because the person is murdered and they think that maybe like the killer might be white. Like, where were you before? Where were you when we were like running stories about her being missing? And Maddie tries to say like, oh, I'll get more eyes on this story than if it was just published in the Afro. And they're like, you know what? That's fine, essentially. And so they send her away, but the person in charge of the Afro, the editor of the Afro, does give her some copies of the Afro newspapers as kind of like a, you know, not an insult, but she's like, here, if you want some information, here you go. And she gives her some copies. Maddie then uses that to start her investigation, to learn more about Cleo, to learn more about like where this story was going. And so she is now starting her investigation in her apartment. Very beautiful mind light, cutting out pieces of the newspaper, laying them around, making connections, thinking like, things like that, learning about this situation. So while she is doing this research, she finds out that Cleo's memorial or funeral is like the next day. So Maddie goes to go see it. It is at a church. Maddie's the only white person there. Everyone else is black. And this is where you get that beautiful like gospel music scene. There is a gospel choir in there singing a hymn as this funeral happens, as you get some more information about what's going on. This like powerful music is in the background. It is a beautiful scene. They have really great like cuts between like Maddie trying to get information and the gospel singers singing. And it is just a really, really great scene. Really kind of like elevates this. It makes it just a much more powerful overall experience. Now, at the funeral, Maddie sees Platt, who who pretends not to know her, as you would imagine. He doesn't want to like draw attention to their relationship. But she also sees Slappy, and Slappy makes a scene at the funeral. Now, Slappy is apparently not even invited to sit up with his children there because I think maybe they think he's a suspect or they think that he might have been the one that got Cleo killed. Someone mentions that he was seen with Cleo the night that she died. So Slappy seems to be a little bit ostracized here, but he makes a scene and confronts Mr. Gordon, basically saying that he's the one that probably got her killed. Now, not a smart thing to do. Mr. Gordon's a very powerful man. This is a very public situation. So after Slappy makes a scene, he leaves the funeral, and Maddie follows him and gets some more information. Now Slappy tells her, his theory on who killed Cleo. He thinks that Mr. Gordon killed Cleo because Cleo put a bet through Lucille, the hairdresser, that hit. And Mr. Gordon killed her, I guess, either because he didn't want to pay out or because she'd rigged the game, something like that. So now Maddie is pulling those threads. She goes to Lucille's. Lucille has a brand new shop. Remember, she got 20% of that numbers game cut. So she opened up a brand new shop. It's still opening, but Maddie goes to investigate. But Lucille denies knowing Cleo at all. Maddie then goes to Bob and tries to get some more help on the story. And Bob basically tells her to back off. It seems like Bob is either Bob tries to play it off like he doesn't think the story has legs, but it seems like there's more going on here. It seems like he is actively trying to push Maddie off, especially when Maddie starts confronting him. He just tells her to back off. So either Bob, or the Baltimore Star has, some financial relationship with Mr. Gordon, or they just don't want to get involved because it might be messy. I'm not sure. We'll find out later, I assume. But Bob tells her to back off. Maddie, as you'd imagine, doesn't back off because she never does. She goes to the Pharaoh. She forces her way into a meeting with Mr. Gordon, and there she picks up a few things about Reggie. She notices Reggie's obvious limp, and he says that he got that, that damaged boxing. And now he's like, I would think you'd get like a bruise, not like a messed up leg. And he said, oh, it was a jump rope accident. Not a good thing to say. That is a dumb, dumb excuse. Maddie also, when she's talking to Mr. Gordon, notices these tropical fish in his office, and Mr. Gordon basically says like Reggie's the fish expert. So Maddie's starting to make some connections here about this strange character around Mr. Gordon who is a boxer, maybe he has a bruised eye, and also likes tropical fish. So Maddie interviews Gordon. She brings up Slappy's theory about Cleo being killed because she got the winnings from the numbers game. Mr. Gordon denies this. He very well might deny it. He seems to be in the dark on a few things, especially like when Cleo confronted him about sending him off to assassinate Miss Summers. He didn't know about that. He might not know about this rigging thing either. It seems like maybe Reggie is pulling some of the strings behind his back, but it also could be that Gordon is just a savvy person and knows to deny it. You don't really know. But they have a good conversation. They have some nice back and forth. She's pushing Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon is kind of deflecting. It's a good conversation. And after this, Maddie goes to Hecht, the department store that Cleo worked at, to talk to them. And when they're there, they tell Maddie that, yes, Cleo worked there. She was beautiful. She was a model. And they're like, oh, you have a connection with her. You literally bought the dress off of her back. And this surprised Maddie. She'd forgotten that, I guess. She didn't, or she didn't realize that Cleo was the model that she bought that dress off of, all those months ago. So this causes a flashback of Maddie that day when she had her, coat on, and she spilled blood on it from getting that lamb for dinner, and that blood stained her coat, which is the reason she went to get that dress. And then we see another flashback here of Maddie on a couch with some blood on it, and Hal, her boyfriend's father, is cleaning up. And you don't really know if this is like, a virginity thing that happened, which it could be because Maddie has mentioned a couple times that Milton, her husband, wasn't her first. And so it seems like Hal was probably the first person that she was intimate with. I think that was that scene. It could be something else, but I think that's what it was. And we also find out during this flashback that Maddie and Hal got pregnant, and then Hal kind of pushed her to have an abortion. He said, you want to be a writer. We don't want to mess up those dreams. So it seems like Hal pushed her to have an abortion. I don't know. Maybe Maddie also wanted an abortion. I'm not certain. It does seem like that Hal is the one that is pushing it, though. Back at the apartment, Maddie is, making those connections, making some more connections. And while she's there, Platt visits her. And Maddie seems to be unraveling. She's like stressed about everything. She's still wearing the dress. She's like trying to make connections, trying to ask Platt about stuff. Platt is trying to tell her to back off. And Maddie kind of like insults him, like, oh, like you're on the case now. It is an interesting like back and forth. Platt does seem to be kind of trying to talk her out of it, but I think probably because he knows how dangerous this is. He knows the people involved, probably doesn't want Maddie getting involved. But this just angers Maddie, and eventually she says she wants to be alone, and Platt leaves. Interestingly, he doesn't tell her to lock her window this time. Every other time he's visited, he's told her to lock her window. And now she's actually in danger. You would think that he would tell her, like, yo, lock your window now. This is very important. He doesn't. He just leaves. I think he's hurt, and so he goes. Now, Maddie now goes to visit Stefan's mother, Kasha, and while she's there, she mentions that she might know the black man that was in the store the day that Tessie Durst came in, and so that might be another suspect. And Kasha is kind of dismissive about this. Maddie's saying like, "Oh, this could give your son some leverage," and Kasha basically says like, "I told everyone before, like no one listened." It's a weird conversation, and this whole conversation where it starts off nice, like Kasha is Polish. Maddie, I guess, has ancestry in Poland. They talk a little bit about that. But then Maddie starts asking about the case, and it starts to get a little heated. I think because Maddie's trying to push Kasha for more information. And while she's doing that, she starts to drop some details about like when Stefan escaped, she's like, do you know who he went to see? And Kasha's like, she went to see me. And Maddie's like, no, he went to see me first. And this causes Kasha to get upset. This causes Kasha to think that, I think that she thinks that like maybe Maddie and her son might have had some sort of intimate relationship, or She thinks that Maddie's just trying to push her to get new information for her story. She's just trying to use her like other people have. And so eventually the argument gets really heated and Kasha stabs her with a knife. And this was a pretty sharp escalation. I mean, Kasha didn't seem very violent. It seemed like her son was violent. I guess she was a little bit violent when she saw Stefan in the tub with his like gas mask on and the fish. Like she got mad at him and was like beating him for that. I don't know. Seems like she was just trying to make a point there, but this whole argument escalates from like pleasant to murder very quickly. So Kasha stabs Maddie with a knife. It was a knife that she was serving food with. Maddie tries to like fight her off. She pulls out the knife, and as she's like trying to stumble away, Kasha like hits her with a chair in the back, like WWE style. It is a good chair hit. Maddie stays up, but Kasha also like hits the knife away. Now Maddie is able to like get into a room and close the door. It doesn't look like it's lockable, but she's able to hold it from Kasha breaking in. So Maddie's able to hold Kasha off. Eventually, we hear a thud on the other side, and Maddie, even though she's like losing blood and collapsing, she opens the door, stumbles out, like crawls out. And as she's getting back to the kitchen, she sees a phone. She goes for that phone to call for help. And as she's going in there, she looks over and she sees Kasha has slit her own throat. Again, a big escalation. I think Kasha got heated in this argument. I think Kasha thought that either Maddie was like doing something with her son or using her son, trying to get information for her story, just using her, something like that. That caused Kasha to stab her in a heated argument. And then because of this, Kasha realized that maybe she would go to jail. Maybe this would be the end of her life. So then she decided to just end it herself and on her terms, I think. Now, Maddie sees this. She's shocked, but she has to focus on the phone. She crawls over to the phone, gets the phone, manages to go up and dial 0, which is the longest number in a rotary telephone. If you've never seen a rotary telephone because you didn't grow up around there, there's 10 numbers. You take the number, you go all the way over and let it come back. 0 is the farthest one. So she gets the 0. She goes all the way. I thought she was doing 911, but it's a 0. She gets the operator. The operator picks up. And Maddie is so weak at that point that she just like can't say anything and collapses. So the operator is saying hello, hello. Maddie's collapsed. I assume the operator can track this. I hope. I hope the operator can at least look up what phone number was calling. And I hope the operator sends help, but we don't know because that is the end of the episode. That is Lady Lake episode 5. Like I said, it is really, really good. Now, what do I think might happen next? Well, Maddie was getting into some pretty interesting ideas here. She seemed to be kind of narrowing in on Reggie as a person of interest in at least Tessie's murder, but maybe also in Cleo's murder. She also suspects Mr. Gordon, although Mr. Gordon did put up a fairly convincing, like, I don't know what you're talking about situation. Do I think Maddie's dead? I don't think Maddie's dead. I think that would be a very boring episode if the last 2 episodes were not Maddie. Like, I don't know who they would get to investigate this. Platt, maybe. I do like Platt, but he is no Maddie. And we still have to figure out, like, who killed Tessie, who killed Cleo, although I'm pretty sure we know who killed Cleo. We have to figure out who killed Tessie, and we have to figure out Maddie's connection to all of this. So I think Maddie survives. I think that operator will ultimately call for help, and I think Maddie will then start to investigate further. Now, this incident will probably put more pressure on Stefan as like the son of a violent person. That'll probably make him seem like more of a suspect. But I think Maddie is going to try to get to the bottom of this, and we will see. I still think her son is the one that killed Tessie, and it seems like Reggie probably killed Cleo. So we will see if that comes to fruition, but that is Lady in the Lake episode 5. Definitely check it out. If you haven't seen this series, catch up now. It's getting really, really good. There's only 2 episodes left. So make sure to catch up so you can be ready for the final 2 episodes of this series. So if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.